Despite receiving praise from reputable review sites, Shadow of the Erdtree, the first DLC for Elden Ring, has become the focal point of mixed reactions. As of June 27th, this DLC has a mixed rating with over 50,000 reviews and numerous criticisms from players. So why is there such a negative reaction to Shadow of the Erdtree? Does it deserve the harsh criticism? Today, let's explore the controversial issues within the Elden Ring community. Now, please sit back, relax with a snack and a drink, and let's get started. Let's take a quick look at the user reviews for Elden Ring's DLC on Steam. According to the data, the negative reviews primarily come from China. Of course, we won't delve into the extreme and unfounded reasons circulating online. For example, some speculate that Chinese players are bombarding Elden Ring with bad reviews to give an advantage to Black Myth, Wukong, or that there is animosity between China and Japan, leading to this review bombing. No, we are civilized and we don't engage in such behavior. In my analysis, one keyword frequently appears in these Chinese reviews: blue bear. Accompanying this are numerous profanities and curse words. So what exactly is this blue bear referring to? When you launch Elden Ring, the game's anti-cheat program is activated. Elden Ring uses the Easy Anti-Cheat tool, whose logo features a blue bear. This system is employed due to the game's online multiplayer modes, including co-op and PvP. Many other games also use this system, including Fall Guys and Fortnite, and these games have never faced complaints about performance issues. However, in Elden Ring, the blue bear can be considered ineffective as it was easily disabled on the day of release. Moreover, this software is fundamentally different from de novo. Easy Anti-Cheat only intervenes if a player uses third-party software to cheat, and it does not encrypt parts of the game that need to be decrypted, meaning your computer doesn't have to handle the heavy processing that de novo requires. So is the performance issue in Elden Ring really due to the blue bear or the players in China? Since the release of Elden Ring, players have reported performance issues. On the PS5 version, the game runs inconsistently. The time you can play at 60 FPS is as rare as finding true love on a dating app, even with the flexible frame rate mode, which shifts between 151p and to 160p 4K. When you enter large open areas, the frame rate only reaches around 50 FPS. In more detailed areas, you'd be lucky to get 40 FPS. In battles where bosses possess many illusionary attack effects, such as the Divine Beast Dancing Lion, every time it switches to lightning or wind elements, you might as well take some bacon, place it on your PS5, and enjoy a delicious and nutritious plate of grilled bacon. This issue also existed in From Software's previous game, Armored Core 6. Even after 2 years, they have yet to resolve these performance issues. The Shadow of the Erdtree DLC for PC faces similar problems. You can run Elden Ring at 59 or 60 FPS with 4K resolution, but only if you have a sufficiently powerful setup. By sufficiently powerful, I mean something like an RX 6800 or RTX 3080 or higher. Therefore, players with 4K monitors, but without a strong enough GPU will need to lower the resolution to Full HD or to K to get the best experience. Additionally, Elden Ring lacks certain graphical support features such as ultra-wide. Upscalers like FSR2, DLSS, or XESS. Moreover, if your PC CPU is weaker than the GPU, you'll experience constant frame drops as you move through the game's world. There's also an acknowledged issue by Bandai where ray tracing automatically turns on for PC users. If your system can't handle it, you'll need to manually disable it. From this analysis, it's clear that the blue bear is not the main culprit behind the lag issues, contrary to what many Chinese players believe. It might crash your PC occasionally, but it doesn't cause the persistent lag. Putting the blue bear issue aside, Elden Ring has had performance problems since its original release, and these issues remain unresolved in the DLC. Coupled with the upgraded graphics, this makes the situation much worse. Elden Ring has been an unprecedented commercial success, so it's strange that the enormous revenue hasn't been used to improve performance issues, especially since the DLC was released several years after the original game. Imagine you're about to defeat a boss and suddenly there's a lag spike, causing an unfair death. Naturally, anyone would be frustrated and vent their anger online. Moreover, the bosses in the game are notoriously difficult. Speaking of difficulty, this is the most controversial aspect of Shadow of the Erdtree since its release. Most players think the DLC is too hard, while others argue that From Software games are supposed to be challenging, and any failure is due to a lack of skill. Yes, From Software games are known for their difficulty, but there's a difference between good difficulty and bad difficulty. I'll quote a negative review from a player.
I've completed all 3 Dark Souls games, and I am at the final boss in Elden Ring. The difficulty of all the bosses I've faced has been balanced, but in the DLC, out of curiosity, I never expected to encounter such unreasonable bosses. Not only do hardcore gamers play this game, there are also busy office workers like me. I can't spend countless hours on artificially difficult bosses. Making the AI read player inputs is not a proper way to create a challenge. Next time, design the bosses with some thought.
If you're unaware, this isn't the first time From Software has made players feel that the AI reacts to player inputs. For instance, every time a player presses the heal button, the Godskin Apostle immediately uses a punishing move, or when the player performs a ranged attack, the boss dodges instantly. In reality, the AI does respond to the player's animations. Each time a player performs an action, these bosses are programmed to react at a specific frame of that animation. This behavior is consistent across all previous games developed by From Software. To be fair, designing bosses to punish players based on their animations isn't the best approach. However, knowing their behavior, we can still find ways to counter-punish them, or at least try. The problem with 99% of the bosses is that you'll have to watch them perform an 8 to 15 hit combo over 5 to 10 seconds before you get a brief window to land a single hit and then retreat. Any hit from the boss can take away at least 50% of your health, leaving you almost no time to use the powerful skills or spells you acquired in the DLC. Moreover, the bosses have overlapping attacks. How are you supposed to dodge a ranged attack while simultaneously avoiding a melee attack from the boss? Not to mention the flashy effects that obscure your vision. What kind of design is that? The negative reviews mentioned earlier accurately describe most of the current bosses, particularly the final boss of the DLC, which is a true nightmare for all Elden Ring players. So what do these frequently criticized bosses have in common? They are either main bosses or endgame content bosses. Let's set aside the fact that the Elden Ring DLC is meant for From Software to include the toughest challenges in the game. Now, try naming a difficult boss from any Soulsborne game, excluding Sekiro. Almost 90% of the time, these bosses are from DLCs, such as Orphan of Kos and Ludwig from the Old Hunters, Darkeater Mitter from the Ring City, Sister Fried from Ashes of Ariandel, and now Shadow of the Erdtree follows the same pattern. In the main game, you've become an Elden Lord, having overcome the toughest challenges. So in the DLC, the difficulty must be significantly increased to match your status as an Elden Lord. This is arguably the hardest DLC content ever produced by From Software. I can immediately place several bosses from Shadow of the Erdtree at the top of the hardest enemies in Soulsborne games. It's unbelievable to think that one day I would consider fighting to Malenias easier than facing a boss in this DLC. Another factor that significantly affects the difficulty of these bosses is their massive size and constant movement above the player's head. In 90% of encounters, you're stuck underneath them, making traditional camera lock-on an experience of extreme dizziness and nausea. If you don't lock the camera, you can't see anything. If you do lock it, you still can't see anything. So for many players, you not only have to learn the boss's moves, but also how to manually adjust the camera while dodging, turning the game into something akin to a third-person shooter where you're constantly aiming the camera at the enemy. The increased difficulty of Shadow of the Erdtree is a double-edged sword. For those seeking a challenge and willing to spend hundreds of hours dying and retrying to master the boss's moveset and mechanics, the battles are immensely rewarding. However, for the average player who lacks extensive experience or time to practice, it becomes a real nightmare, a torment they have to endure alongside real-life struggles. This probably explains why so many players criticize its difficulty. By June 2024, Elden Ring had sold 25 million copies, making it from software's most successful game to date. It surpassed Dark Souls 3's 10 million copies and earned the Game of the Year title, bringing a substantial number of new players to the Soulsborne series. Elden Ring was designed with an open-world concept, prioritizing exploration. If you couldn't defeat a boss, you could always venture elsewhere. You could fight mini-bosses, gather equipment, farm runes, and level up, then return stronger for revenge. Although other Soulsborne games offer similar experiences, Elden Ring provides a more interesting and diverse open-world experience. Elden Ring offers countless activities, exploration opportunities, and ways to level up and gear up. This groundbreaking open-world gameplay made Elden Ring more accessible and appealing to a broader audience. However, in the DLC, much of that is stripped away because its world feels empty. Before diving into that, let's discuss a new mechanic introduced in the DLC. The DLC features a mechanic called Shadow Realm Blessing, which is only applicable within the DLC area. Items called Scadutree Fragments can upgrade the Scadutree Blessing, increasing the player's damage dealt and reducing damage taken. A similar mechanic applies to spirits in the form of Revered Spirit Ash Blessing. Additionally, enemies and bosses in Shadow of the Erdtree have a new power level, scaling with new Game Plus levels. This ensures that all players, whether they have completed the main game or not, start from the same baseline. This means that now, all players are equally weak. Let's talk about the vast map of the DLC. It's expansive, with multiple layers and vast stretches, but it feels entirely empty. Items and bosses are scattered far apart across the map. You can ride your horse for 10 to 15 minutes without discovering anything new. Moreover, the Scadutree Blessing, intended to empower players, had little effect at launch, impacting the grinding experience significantly compared to the base game. Due to numerous complaints, a new update has boosted its power, motivating players to farm. For those who aren't already addicted to the game, this is helpful. For those who are, the advice is to make full use of everything the developers have provided. Despite the unreasonable difficulty and movesets of the bosses, they always have exploitable weaknesses, even the final boss, the game's toughest challenge. Make the most of spirits and NPCs, and even other players to support you in battles. Also, feel free to use the build that suits you best. There are plenty of new weapons, ashes of war, and artifacts to allow you to customize your combat style. Don't hesitate to play dirty if necessary. At this point, pride doesn't matter, winning does. No one will judge you for it. Just grab a big shield for protection and poke the boss with whatever weapon works until it dies. Combine this with a high-level Shadow Realm Blessing and a bit of patience, and you'll undoubtedly overcome all the challenges the game throws at you. Although I personally believe that Shadow of the Erdtree is a great DLC in terms of world building, lore, level design, character design, visuals, sound, and so on. Some negative reviews about its difficulty stem from players not fully understanding the game's primary goal, exploration. However, it clearly has its own issues affecting the gaming experience, such as a frustrating camera, an expansive map with little content, difficulty levels unsuitable for the average player, and heavy game performance demands. It's no coincidence that this DLC has become one of From Software's most controversial releases. So, what are your thoughts? Is it too difficult? Share your opinions in the comments below. Don't forget to give me a like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future videos from HoniGAME. For now, goodbye and see you next time.